So today's talk, super interesting one about, sorry? The microphone. Okay, let's do the microphone as well. Oh, I hope that's, I don't know if they can hear me, but we'll just assume yes, you know? Okay, so what are we talking about? Today we're talking about SpecDD. SpecDD is a framework I developed for specification-driven development. I don't know, many developers here? Anyone? Just by raise of hands? Okay. Anyone has worked with specification-driven development before it became an AI fad? Okay, good. So we have at least some background. So some of you know what we are talking about. SpecDD is a bit of a different kind of a specification-driven development framework. Okay, if we are talking about kind of historically, there used to be a kind of, you know, more enterprisey approach to this, where we said, okay, cool, we kind of want to have a formal specification for the software that we are writing, right? We were solving a problem of kind of compliance and things along those lines, right? That was years, 10, 20 years ago. We kind of tended to, especially like in regulated industries, we tended to kind of work that way. Now the whole spec-driven development team has kind of been given new life and lease on life because of AI and agentic coding, right? So at kind of some point mid last year, you know, engineers kind of working on agentic coding and things like that started to realize that just prompting for things is not quite enough. Okay. So spec-driven development kind of had a renaissance and a new lease on life. So around that time, I also started working on SpecDD, right? Which is a framework that is kind of meant to make human lives easier, also while it also happens to make AI lives much easier. Okay? So who am I? Author of SpecDD. I'm a tech guy. I've been developer for many, many years. I'm also doing a lot of other things in DevOps space, in business space, what have you. David wanted all my titles here. I said, no, we're just going to skip that and keep the most relevant one for the talk. So why dev operators, which I assume is most of you, right? Because the raise of hands for developers was a little bit low. I'm assuming everyone here is DevOps or DevOps related or something like that, right? Why should you care about any of this is the first question. Why do you care about development framework? Well, the reality is that, I mean, this has been true for what, 10, 15 something years at least, right? DevOps is a lot of coding, surprisingly. It's not just shells and adminning things and installing software and DNF and apt-get and what have you. It's a lot of software development stuff, right? Your ISE, right? Your CAC and scripts, it's development, right? So you're a software developer, Harry, congratulations, right? All the DevOps are now, like we can close the battle now between DevOps and sysadmins and developers. You're in the same crowd now. You're all like in the same bucket, right? We are, in fact, right? And the whole talk in one sentence can be summarized. AI is super useful, right? Now we know that. A couple of years ago, we could still have arguments about it and hallucinations and all kinds of weird things were happening, right? But at this point, I think we can all agree that it's at least useful. If not really great at things, it's at least useful, okay? But it's underbriefed very often. So especially when we are starting with agentic coding or agentic anything, so usually what happens is people open the agentic interface in the console or their desktop app or whatever, type in some prompt, point it at the repository and should just say, go there and do things. And kind of expect the agent to pick up the pieces from either the repository itself or the code files in there, or whatever have you in there, right? Or just a pile of documentation just happens there, right? that doesn't work. But before we talk about all of that, I kind of want to address some fundamentals, right? Okay, AI, everything, foundation. I was trying to be funny there. What AI is not? Okay, before we talk about what SpecDD can solve or spec-driven development can solve or any of that, what AI is not? AI is not a human mind. AI cannot reason. AI doesn't have emotions or preferences, no beliefs, no lived experience. It has a training corpus that can mimic all of these things, but it really doesn't have any of these things intrinsically, right? It's not a truth oracle. It can be polished, confident, and it can still lie to you, just to tell you whatever, just some kind of a miracle. Again, depends on their training, okay? And it's not the person from that meeting that you had like 2 weeks ago where you were talking about structure and best practices and how to make things better, right? None of that, right? What AI is fundamentally, and okay, depending on your grade of AI exposure, you might disagree with me here a little bit or like a lot, but bear with me. AI is a very advanced autocomplete, right? So when you start the agent, you feed it a prompt or whatever have you, right? What it does, basically mathematically estimates what should kind of follow, right? It's very important that you understand how that really underneath works, because that kind of feeds into fundamentals, how to use AI efficiently, right? We're going to kind of touch that, right? But it's not, like I said here, prompt is not a button labeled be correct. Okay, right? Build an app or a spaceship or whatever, what have you, right? It's a very context-dependent thing. And what I mean by context, it's all the things that you as DevOps or software developers or both, right? You intrinsically have working on the project, but the AI doesn't. Right? You start your coding agent and you basically say, hey, build me this feature, right? But there is a lot of context. You know where you work. You know what application you're working in. What are your preferences? What are your team's coding style? What is your preferred way of implementing things in Ansible playbooks? How do you structure Terraform? All of the things that are kind of unique for your projects or your working environment or you as a person, right, that AI has no way of knowing. It's just kind of, from that point, hey, I have an internet as a training corpus. I can kind of figure out what is maybe the best practice in the universe, right? And I'm going to try to apply it to whatever you are asking for, okay? So, and it's not even a new problem, this fundamentally, right? We've been facing this problem in IT and a lot of other industries forever, right? Whenever we're onboarding new people, right? It was just easier because we are onboarding new people depending on the size of the teams and companies, maybe a couple of times a year or maybe once a week. We are not starting, onboarding every couple of hours with a new prompt, right? Or a new agent or new session, right? Now this problem becomes a little bit more interesting, right? So project intent, generally, right, whatever projects you're working on, right, again, includes Ansible, Terraform, IOC, whatever system you're using, or hopefully you're using, right, or your scripts. The intent is usually very scattered around places, right? This just becomes true. Code remembers whatever happened, you just wrote there, and etc. Tickets remember whatever someone wanted approximately, hopefully, plus implications of someone kind of implied from the context, right? Docs remember what was true, right? Hopefully, if you updated them anytime during the past decade. Chats remember nothing, but it's an excellent scroll back. You can kind of get something from there. And implicit context generally, both for humans and AI especially, right? Just that the problem with AI is kind of immediately visible, creates rework. So how many of you have had prompt ping pong recently where you asked the AI to do something, and it did something, but really not the way you wanted, and then you had at least 3, 4, 5 sessions of saying, hey, actually not that, let's do it this way. Any show, there's like everyone, okay, of course, right? That happens all the time. Because again, you're just fundamentally asking AI to extrapolate something sensible from 1, 2, 3 sentences, and the code that you're feeding the AI in as a context. Okay, that's all the information AI really has. Maybe you have a Confluence somewhere or a doc folder somewhere that you also feed into the AI, but again, that's just kind of like a here. Look at this Byzantine library of things and figure it out. Right? Then the context stacks, the same rule, prompt reviews, chats, and size, and you keep repeating and repeating. Okay, and the boundary creep. Right, where you ask the AI to do certain things on a file or a module or automation, or Terraform module or something like that, and you just kind of accidentally keep adding responsibilities there. And let's be fair, who reviews the AI code religiously every single line of what it does? Anyone? Like religiously, like every line. Well done. Well done. I'm super proud of you. I don't know most of you who raised hands, but I'm still super proud of you. Continue. All right. And the thing is, the prompts and docs are not enough. It's just not really enough. A long prompt is a sticky note. You just throw it at the agent, and you kind of expect it to do things. But you cannot put in a prompt a whole knowledge base. You cannot put in a prompt a whole lot of experience, and there is just a logical limit how much you can type and how much you actually want to type. As human beings, you're like, listen, like at this point, if I have to write all of this, it's just easier for me to write this Ansible playbook myself. Why do I even use agent at that point, right? So, and the other part is, okay, a docs pile is still a pile, right? If the agent has to guess what applies, it's as bad as not having the context at all, right? So what are we doing here? So the question here also, do you also onboard new joiners by just pointing them at docs folders or Confluence? Anyone does that? I really hate that. I know that it does happen, right? Right? But think like I'm gonna just have a belief in a better world and say everyone here works for great companies, right? And you really care for people and their well-being and onboarding, and you want them success, not set them up for failure. So you don't just say, hey, new guy, just read Confluence, right? Read there. That's it. Go. Just out of my office, right? But we are treating AI like that. And we expect good results out of it. Normally, that's what we are doing, right? So this is how most frameworks for knowledge bases and specifications. There are some others, right? Nowadays, to my knowledge, all of them work exactly like this. Okay, you have a Git repository. You drop a bunch of documents into that repository, and you just say, "Well, AI, figure out this thing," and you expect it to do it. Right? But AI has limitations in context sizes, how it perceives things, recency, a whole like a list of things that it just cannot work like that in the same manner as a human can't. Right? The same restrictions fundamentally apply. Okay. So what people and agents really need is a nearby contract. Okay, something nearby that says, well, this specific thing, okay, does these specific things and is responsible for these specific things, and it can do these specific things in this kind of a way, right? So that it doesn't have to go and look somewhere, who knows where, like I said, in a docs folder, right? And it needs mapped authority, right? What each area owns, what we can touch, what we can't touch, okay? And for that, SpecDD. SpecDD is basically designed as a framework that does a couple of things. Number one, it allows you to store intent and context and a whole lot of information that I'm not going to go through because I only have some minutes of time. You can read all about it after. But it allows you to basically all of the points of information that we kind of discussed already and touched a little bit to be stored alongside with your code or whatever is you're writing, right? And give kind of a local repository of knowledge, right? And local repository of intent. I'm going to demonstrate what that means after, right? And it gives you a local contract, right, of what actually should happen in places. And it gives humans and agents a kind of a location also to read the rules, right, and understand what's happening. Because another kind of direction, what I was seeing that a lot of systems are trying to take, is they create kind of like memory databases and things like this specifically for AI that are nearly impossible for a human to look at. Because it's a I don't know, some I saw like store AI memory in binary, like, okay, good luck reviewing that, right? Or some kind of specific databases, some do SQLite or whatever, right? Go look at that in code review, right? It's not possible. So what do we do instead of one giant spec or doc folder or what have you? We have many small specs that actually live alongside your code in SDD files, which is SpecDD spec format, right? This is specifically for this framework. How this works? Super simple. People doing development will be very familiar with this kind of approach where you collocate, for example, tests and other things together with your code. If you're purely DevOps, you're just basically saying, hey, you recognize that Ansible, right? Okay, cool. So instead of just having YAMLs, you also have spec files. And those spec files follow a very specific format that explains, hey, this is what or, I don't know, tasks or modules, whatever, should actually do and how they should do it. Okay. And what a spec actually captures is a whole lot of things. I'm not going to repeat all of that. Take a picture. But the most important things are, it instructs both the AI and humans about, hey, the scope of the spec and all the metadata about the spec. It tells the AI agents and humans what should happen in this code and why. And it also is possible to tell through the specs what shouldn't happen and why. Both very important things, right? Both for AI and humans. Again, like I said, this framework is kind of useful for both. Where you can basically store constraints and intent, right? Because whenever you're reading a code file or automation file, you can very simply imply, well, this is being done. But why it's being done? What are the constraints of this being done? In which scenarios does this apply or doesn't apply? None of that knowledge lives in code or automation files or Terraform or what have you, unless you add it as comments. But then, how many of people actually do that? I have some doubts, right? So the specification chain, how that works, there is also inheritance to this. Of course, there is, right? Parent specs, local specs, neighboring files and tasks, and this is generally how SpecDD resolves the context. Okay, we're looking not just at one specific spec file, we're actually looking at the parents, we're looking at the surrounding things, whatever is being referenced in there. Okay? And write authority is part of the spec. How many of you have asked AI agents to do some editing in code, and it has wildly started to do things you absolutely did not intend it to do? Everyone just raise hands, it's okay. We know, it's fine, right? Super important, SpecDD deals with that. You have a place where you can actually instruct AI, hey, only touch this, don't touch these things. This is not relevant for you, right? And the way how agents are instructed to operate is also interesting, right? Agents are basically told in the SpecDD framework, right? First, hey, resolve things, read, authorize, right? Authorize what you're actually allowed to do. Change, verify, and then report back to you. Instead, if someone is using actively AI, you have seen that where, oh, I did actually change that, but I didn't tell you because whatever, you know. And And basically, it starts from the resolution path. Again, not super important, but it starts from the target instead of just giving a kind of a wild direction of saying, oh, we are working this way, or we are making this change in this particular function, whatever. You are actually saying, hey, edit this module or edit this thing, and under a SpecDD framework, right, the AI agents actually are given a chance of figuring out, hey, we're targeting this thing, these specs apply, this is the context I need to take into account, and these are going to be ultimately the changes we are going to be making. Okay? The spec says what is allowed, can change, must stop. So there are built-in rules in the specs where we can specify, pun intended, what can be changed, what is being owned by the certain specs and things like this. So there is as little ambiguity as possible, because ambiguity is enemy of effective AI use. The more ambiguity in your whatever prompt or documentations there is, the worse is going to be your outcomes, right? This is how a spec looks like. Don't have highlighting because the presentation framework, honestly, I couldn't be bothered to add the syntax highlighting for this framework just yet. But you can kind of imply how this works. It's a structured file, okay? The SDD files are structured text files that are human readable, machine parsable, and they are actually designed to be hard to misinterpret, okay? Because again, what's interesting with AI and prompts and all of these things and docs, when you write docs in general, how many of you pay attention to having as little ambiguity as possible actively? So 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. Some of you do, of course, right? It's a good practice, but most of you don't, okay? When you write documentation in Markdown or whatever, you use human language and human prose, okay? You use maybe certain verbs, or you do certain things certain way, but for AI, it's just an input, right? All of your docs. So if you say maybe, the AI is going to interpret it as maybe, not surely, not must not. So all of these keywords actually matter for the efficiency of AI implementations, right? So the spec format is kind of like that. Purpose, it's the purpose. Owns, must. It's a keyword that AI is instructed, and it's also actually trained just from its corpus and language understanding. Must means must. It doesn't mean maybe should or probably might, right? So using this kind of language in specs, and this is why the specs are designed like this, actually increases the precision of AI. Okay. And then once you have a lot of specs, your prompts also definitely got much shorter. You don't need to describe, build this whole thing like this because that and something, right? No, what you do is you just say, hey, I have code leak, QA failure, right, is what I have here. You just say, hey, here's a spec, follow the spec, and that's it. The whole framework actually helps more than just AI agents, just by accidentally being there, right? It solves a lot of other problems that I have noticed in practice. Reviews. So for example, when you're doing reviews for, I don't know, Ansible, Terraform, whatever, merge requests, you look at the change, you have to imply, or you have to know somehow, or maybe someone communicated to you, or you looked at the ticket, somehow you have to know like what was supposed to actually happen here. So you read that and you're like, okay, all of these changes, was that supposed to work like this? Okay, I don't know, looks great, approved, merged, go to production, great. Now you have a file in the same scope as that change being made, and hopefully you have that spec being adjusted in the same merge request where you can look at the truth. Because the human actually wrote there, hey, I'm changing this, and this is how it should work because of these reasons. And you look at the changed code bytes, and you say, hey, okay, this kind of matches up, right? Onboarding, people can actually be pointed at features now, and you can say, hey, I need to change some particular behavior about this particular piece of code, right? And you can say, go explore there, and when they are there, they can look at the specs and see why things work the way they work, not just that they do. So you see how that makes a big difference, right? Alignment, product intent, and engineering constraints. You can store all kinds of things in SpecDD, right? There is about a dozen different sections, right, with specific purposes for each. You don't have to use all of them, but you may choose, you know. There are some caution labels that come with specs, okay? I'm going to be truthful with you here. It's not a golden hammer. It doesn't solve every single problem. It solves a lot of them. But specs that try to become novels are bad, right? So you write a spec that is like 600 lines, and now you have a doc. Okay, you've solved not really many things. Specs that fossilize, so you have to actually keep specs aligned with the actual reality of your automation playbooks or your Terraform code or etc. Right? In fact, I am working on some CLI tools to help with that. That is going to be like, hey, you changed this implementation, but you didn't update specs, or vice versa. And how does that make sense? You should probably look at that. You know, ownership that is just somewhere misguided, or tasks that smuggle a migration inside a small change. There are still failure modes even with specs that can happen, but it does require certain discipline still. But the benefits are there, and they are significant. Okay? So as a takeaway, the problem was always missing local authority and local context of things, right? You have the context. It's not like you don't know what the things are supposed to do. It's just that it's scattered all over the place. Okay? The state of SpecDD, it's ready to use. Okay? We have a very nice, very minimal CLI that can do updates and can do some other things, and can help the AIs to navigate around SpecDD files, right? We have support for major IDEs. IntelliJ Visual Studio is fully supported. OpenVSX for everything else that is Visual Studio Code based, but isn't Visual Studio Code. So usually both marketplaces kind of cover majority of these tools. Coding agents, there are skills, right, that teach the agents to actually work with SpecDD for every single major agent. And we have open skills as well that allows to integrate with also your local LLMs, etc. And that's it. Thank you. QA. Questions? I get we get like a couple of minutes of questions, no?
Well, you have must and must nots.
Yes.
And today the speed of development increased really. So we are not really building small features, but rather very massive features.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even myself, I don't know the whole musts,
That's fine.
and figuring it out on the way.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with this?
You deal with it as if you would be dealing with it yourself. You kind of answered your own question. You figured out going away. You don't need to have perfect specs. You have to have a little bit of specs. So think like you would be working on okay, let's say big features. This customer records module shouldn't be sending emails directly, must not, right? And it should, for example, durably store changes to the customer accounts, must, right? So you start small. You don't need to. Common failure mode that wasn't actually really mentioned that well is overspecking, overwriting the whole. That's why I kind of mentioned like having huge specs where there's like 600 lines of spec. No, you just write key things, key items. AI still can imply certain things from best practices. You don't have to be Captain Obvious, right? and explain everything. Don't split it in lines here or do something like this. You don't need to go that minuscule, right? High-level guidance at first is good, and then iterate on top of that. If you basically write a spec and say, agent, implement this specification or determine where there is a drift between my code and my specification, you can use plan instruction. So there's a skill for SpecDD planning and drift detection where you can basically say, hey, figure it out and propose a plan. If it misses high, means you have to adjust your spec. If it's on target, it's good, right? But start at a very high level.
Thank you for the presentation. It was interesting to see the solutions. I have a question. So if I understand everything, the SpecDD files are supposed to be written by humans.
Sorry? Yes, by humans or AI. You can do both. There is no law here. There is no law. I commonly write.
Regarding how the computation part can be used, is if humans write SpecDD, then they change them after something code after, fix a bug, or
right.
in a feature in the log, they need to be still modifying the SpecDD.
Yes.
If the SpecDD files are written by AI, those they are also subject or vulnerable for hallucinations.
Correct. Yes. Review everything religiously. It's just that it's easier to review in this case because you have kind of evidence. You have evidence. To answer kind of the first question, though, it was mentioned you can really nicely use AI to write specs, and it's much easier because you have like 100 lines of a spec that describes the whole feature potentially, right? Because of the keywords and density of the instructions, right? And then you use plan mode and say, this is like a superpower. There's an entire blog article about this I wrote, where you can ask an agent, following this spec, describe exactly what you're going to do, right? And then you look at that and say, well, this works or this doesn't work, instead of saying, hey, implement this, and then going and reviewing the whole code base. So you can kind of cheat a little bit. Sorry, there was a question there.
Actually, so we are in the community, we are implementing some kind of skills documentation. So I understand like this SDE is not kind of structure to create this kind of like we are storing the skills in an MD, but instead of that, storing in a more structured data files.
Yeah.
I think it's what.
To some degree, yes. But there is a huge difference between a spec in a markdown file written as prose or a spec written as a spec because of the keywords, what I mentioned, right? It actually makes a huge, huge difference. I had a numbers slide here. I removed it because it's internal tests and internal benchmarks, and I'm still working on like public benchmark. But the difference between, I have internal tests where I have the same specification explained in a human prose as a human being, right? And I wrote it, and as a spec file. And the difference in precision was massive. It's not just a little bit better. It's 10 times better, right? Just because of the verbs being used as musts and must nots and things like this, because it reduces the ambiguity. Right? As I'm saying, just feeding in markdown files as a library into AI, it will work, especially with the modern AIs. It will work fairly occasionally most of the time, right? But we're not talking about it works or doesn't work. Now is the question how well it works. Please.
Yes, sorry. I have a question. You know the testing pyramid where integration tests are on top and unit tests are the base? Where would you put this spec?
It's a triangle. It's a triangle of, usually for coding, right? What I do personally, code, SpecDD, and unit tests. It's a triangle. Works amazingly well, by the way, when you say, hey, I start working from specs, code implementation, or if you prefer TDD, implement the tests, and then implement the code. Works great. Higher level tests can be derived from that as well, but it works super well.
Last question.
Last question.
Sorry. I have a question. So you mentioned that there's syntax and there's structure. So is there any way that it can be is there a process of compilation or something that validates that syntax or something
Yeah, there's a CLI command that goes around all the spec files. You can point at it, and it's going to validate whether the spec file is valid or not, right? If you're asking deterministically whether there is something to test whether AI actually followed the spec, that is not possible because AI does AI things still, right? There's going to be some guardrails, but that's about it. Okay, thank you.
I've been in tech for the last 20 years. Like, I think you are kind of my age, someone a bit older, but yeah. So I'm co-founder of a company called TechAbreath. Okay, and in TechAbreath, what we do is manage infrastructure for our clients. Okay, infrastructure of all kinds, but basically more cloud infrastructure than on-premise. Okay, so we are also a Fastly's partner. Do you know Fastly? Yeah. Okay. Okay, I have a couple of questions for you. How many of you have had us? Yeah, 2? Only 2?
Everyone.
Okay.
Was
exactly,
it today? This week?
This week, that's a good question. This week? Oh, yeah. Whoa. And how many of you thought that you were going to be fired? Yeah, right? And they fired you? No. Okay. Sorry, what? Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, so or being fired or being promoted. Okay, that's good. So I have 5 stories for today. I don't know if there will be just a few or there will be enough. I don't know. So we'll start with 5 today, but I have some more. The ghost server. Okay, we had no monitoring. I started with this company a few weeks ago, something like that. So I was like onboarding it, and I noticed that, well, I didn't notice that we had no monitoring. They told me that, yeah, we have some monitors somewhere, you know. And, well, okay. And this is what happened, okay? This is what it looked like, more or less. The endpoints are not the same, but it was a long time ago, so I don't remember the endpoints, but you will understand, okay? I guess. So yeah, everything was fine. In theory, I was attached to a server and telling a file, the log file, error file, everything file, you know, and nothing. Everything was fine, no errors, but half the users were getting a bad experience. We're having issues. This was an API, so they were having issues, but nothing to debug. So this is what we got, and I want you to guess what happened, okay? So users were reporting errors. The monitoring, quote, everything was good. The application server was good, and the server DB was good. No CPU issues, you know, no latency. Everything was good. We had no alerts because, you know, the monitoring, and I didn't know what else to do. I was like, yeah, I told you, it was almost 2 days debugging, nothing. What do you think is happening here?
Routine error? Yes.
What, sorry?
Routine.
Routing.
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 Yeah.
What time?
Wrong rules.
What time of routing? DNS? It's always DNS, right?
It's quite often the DNS. You'll be surprised.
Okay, it wasn't DNS. A couple of days. A couple of days. What do you ask?
No, because I was thinking maybe it's an external service that is down because I saw checkout. So
Well, we were down for a couple of days, so maybe another team had the same issues.
Proxy load balancer or something in that area?
Anything else?
certificates.
CDN pointing as well.
See them?
CDN pointing to that as well.
Okay, that might be good. Yeah,
Missing data not being checked for 404.
missing data.
Server errors with no login.
Server errors with no login. Maybe, right? Because the logs were all good. Okay. More context.
But it was
Routing.
yes.
Oops, spoiler. What happened? Sorry, I don't know. Oh, it was clicking the wrong button. Okay. I didn't know that we had two servers because they had several applications, but it was like distributed monolith, something like that. I mean, that kind of things that you don't want to do, but they wanted to do, and they did it. So the same application, sorry, the same server had several applications. So what was happening, that server A was getting a request. This request was requesting a new sub-request to another service, which was, we had a load balancer to the other server. So that request was failing, and the original request failed silently because, you know, when you do microservices or something like that, you need some protection, right? They hadn't. Okay, so I didn't know they had, well, I didn't know they had two instances, and one of them was full. So yeah, I was new. I didn't know the architecture. I didn't know almost anything. And lessons learned. Monitoring is not optional. It's the first thing you set up. All of you have monitoring in your, raise the hands. The rest of you is because you are not working on DevOps? You are developers or something like that, okay. But you know that you are in charge of that too, right? You should be. I mean, it's, well, at least is how I think that DevOps means that everyone in the team is accountable somehow for the services, yeah? So, and good infrastructure as code is not optional, it's the documentation. It wasn't well documented, and well, I had a look at the Terraform code, but it was insufficient, so I missed it. Story 2. Do you like it, eh?
Anyway, you were not fired.
Never. No, never. Well, not yet. Not yet. Yeah. Hours of working, many hours. It was 11 p.m., something like that day. And I remember the hours, you know. I had my SQL workbench open, 2 tabs, the local one. I was developing 2. I was doing a lot of stuff in that company. The production DB wanted to drop the local one. And what happened?
Disaster recovery test.
Huh? I didn't hear you.
Disaster recovery test.
disaster recovery test. Yep. Yep. That's a feeling you never forget. Never forget. But that's not the best. No backups. Another company. I just onboarded a couple of servers somewhere, no cloud, nothing. The previous tech people didn't bother about anything. No monitoring, no backups, nothing. So, I don't know how, because this was AI pre-era, you know, but I got it, and I was able to restore the data just 1 hour ago. 1 hour before the drop, thanks to the binary logs, but they might not be there. So that was luck. Lessons learned. After 8 hours on the clock, don't touch production if possible. I know that sometimes it's not possible, but I think we need to rest. You know, we think, well, there's a lot of pressure on our companies, you know, but there is one moment that you start feeling weird, right? It happened to me. I started to feel like, I don't know, I'm just like getting drunk, you know? It's like, okay, I'm not thinking like I should be thinking to be doing some operation, some task, right? Ensure that you have proper backups. You know, sometimes we say, yeah, we need to add backups. We need to add to the backlog. Trust me, I'm an engineer, we'll do it, you know.
And that you can restore them properly.
Yeah, that's another point. Yeah. That's a good lesson, actually. You need to test your backups. Yeah.
And you got fired on that one?
I was fired?
Yeah.
No. No, I'm really lucky. Lucky man. Yeah. I'm really lucky. You know, what happens is that who breaks something is because he's working on something. If you don't do anything, you won't break anything. So this is business too, you know, and this happens. So you can learn about my mistakes or the mistakes the company I was and change that. You know, the 3-2-1 rule, that's really, really important. 3 copies to different media, 1 offsite. If you have on-premise servers, you need to have 1 copy offsite. You remember OVH? Yeah? Did you have servers there? Any of you have servers there? Strasbourg, yeah. You remember that? You know what happened? The fire. The whole data center got fire, and well, there are a lot of people who lost the company because they had no external backups, so they lost everything. Story 3. Your course legacy. This is a really good one. Let's go for it. New application in production. I just joined the company the first day. The previous lead left the company I don't know, a couple of days ago, before that happened. They had no test, any kind of test. There had obviously no testing environment, no QA, no staging, good life. How many of you have seen something like this? Right? Recently, or? Yeah. Yeah. Too recently? Or how? Many applications like that. Okay. So, yeah, the first thing I did was opening the app and try to log in with the app. I asked for a user. I tried. 500 error. Nice. Sorry, what did I say? No, I tried to register first. Okay, a new user, and it failed. And then I asked my colleagues to, give me some credentials because maybe my user, well, I don't know. So I tried with another credentials, and it failed too. So the application was live. Users had already updated the application. It was mobile application. So they started the rolling up of the application, and I was told that the rollback wasn't an option. We can't go back to the previous version because business is business, and the only person who understood anything on that wasn't there. So we have to move forward and fix everything. It took months. I was on fire. It took months. It was insane. So they told me that they had tested the application. And I said, that's not possible. That's impossible because the register doesn't work, the login doesn't work. It's impossible. But it was tested. Okay, so I can say to you that never ship what you have tested. Prepare a staging environment and do that kind of tests. Okay. Automated test. They had no automated test, so it was impossible to detect anything. And raise your hand early. Okay. If you see that a deployment of so big has any type or any opportunity, any risk, raise your hand because the consequences are really bad. Sorry for. Do you like it, huh? Saturday morning. Saturday morning, the CEO called me. We have an issue. So, what do you think happened?
It's the one from before you probably today.
It might be, but it's not. It's another company. This is the database. What did you say? Sorry.
Like the same with the load balancer. It's another server.
That might be. Yeah. No, it's not that. Sorry? File system, no, it wasn't file system.
Network error?
Or open to the public when someone connected and dropped it up.
Yep. We had MySQL server on RDS, port open to the internet. The password was quite weak to be open to the internet. And I flagged this. I told the CEO, this is open, this shouldn't be open. But he told me, keep it open because A partner needs access to the database to do stuff.
So he has destroyed the database. What's happened finally? He has the access to the database, but what is happening? Crash it.
You like it, eh? Yep, someone, probably a bot, I don't know, because you know that there are bots, okay? And they can navigate through all the IPs in matter of minutes. You know that, right? You know that? That a bot can explore the whole IPv4 network in minutes. Probably faster with the AI, right? So, yeah, they drop the database and left a blackmail message. But we had backups. Yeah, we had backups, and that saved my life, probably.
You didn't have customers' data, personal data. Or it was before GDPR.
We are 2026, right? It has expired. We have personal data. Yeah. Yeah. So keep everything close. I know that it's obvious for everyone until it's not. Yeah. So be careful about that because an open port is really risky, really risky. And trust your instinct. If you know something is wrong, be assertive. I should be more assertive at that point and tell them, no, this can't be open. We need to close it. Because, yeah, you will be, well, maybe you won't be the one fixing it, but you might be. Story 5, last one. Smart locks, that's important. Company down for almost a week. I wasn't working there, and I was a freelancer at that point, so they called us. Who has used a technology in production without having some, yeah? Anyone else? I don't believe you. Liars. Okay. Yeah. So, this was a Kubernetes cluster, multiple services in cross-loop backoff, services. This was kind of a microservice architecture. They had 12 microservices or something like that. And at that point, they were 2 developers. You like it, that? Yeah? So, obviously, no IAC, no documentation, people who built it gone. Last deployment weeks ago because the team didn't know how to deploy anything. And no monitoring, and well, you know. What would you do if nobody on the team knows Kubernetes? How many of you know Kubernetes? Yeah. So you will have able to solve this, but it was really simple to fix. But you need to know something about Kubernetes to fix this. If you have a Kubernetes cluster that you don't know how to operate, I'm being recorded. I can't say the word I was about to say, but you know, you are in a really bad situation. Yeah, we found mismatches, some code and the deployed version. So we deployed the last versions. We ensured that everything was updated. The pod's resource configuration was really bad. So we ensured that all of the pods, the containers had the resources they need to operate. And we added some basic monitoring. So yeah, it worked. It was basic, but they didn't know that. There are some interesting lessons here. So your technical decisions will outlive your time at the company. For sure. Well, almost. How many of you had left a company before it closed? It closes. Everyone. You closed a company. You too? Okay. Don't open DGG, okay? We, in the tech world, we love making new stuff, right? Making, testing the cutting edge technology, some kind of, that kind of things, okay? And I think that's good, but not for production. If you don't have enough knowledge to operate something in production, don't put it. So, and microservices architecture are hard. I know that that's another unpopular opinion, but I've seen many disasters with that. When if you don't know how to operate microservices, they are really painful. Okay. So the circuit breakers is related to the first story or the second story, right? The first story was? I don't remember. A proper circuit breakers can at least add you some information of what happened. So, yeah, add everything. And which one do you prefer? You can only vote one.
Open door is very bad.
Yep.
CEO is really very bad.
Okay.
The problem is the CEO. How the CEO can decide from the point of view technical that he has to take that decision. This is the problem, because it's happened to me. I left the company 6 months ago because they didn't want to create a stage of the application. They didn't want it to update because no touch, otherwise maybe we have a problem. Are you idiot or what? I do not have a backup. I do not have a backup. I do not have a stage. You don't want to touch it, so what? I'm here for doing what?
Yeah, exactly.
I said bye bye. I don't want to know. I don't want to stay in a company with people like this.
You know, I don't have an answer. I guess CEOs are mainly business people who don't understand tech, and some of them don't want to understand tech. So they hire you like a CTO, fractional CTO, whatever, but they don't want you, they want to hear what you have to say. It's like, sometimes I left some of those companies because...
They were saying they were one of the 4 companies in Spain more secure. They were telling me the first day on board, we are the most secure company.
Yeah, I trust you. I trust you.
I trust you.
Okay, so some votes. The first one, the ghost error. Disk, 1. Second one, DB dropped. Oh, I'm not counting, but I'm overall seeing. Okay. The cursed legacy, 1. No, it's good. Everything's good.
I mean, you put to production something that you don't know what it does. That's so fun.
Obviously, that wasn't, yeah. The open door. And the last one, Kubernetes, and they don't know how to manage. Oh, I think it's between the third and the fourth, and I don't know. Well, okay, it's good. Okay, this is my story. Lessons, more lessons. This is like, yeah, same, different stories, but same pattern. Monitoring always comes first. Not when, no, we'll go to production and we'll add the monitoring later, you know. Trust me, that happened. Add to the backlog and, you know, next sprint. Yeah. So, no, be assertive on that. If you put something in production, it needs to be monitored from the day 0. Fatigue is a real operation risk. Trust me. We need to rest, okay? I don't know, maybe you are kind of like me, that when you start focusing on something, working on something, you can work and work and work, and suddenly you notice that, wow, 6, 7 hours, or 10 or 11, you know? So yeah, we need to rest, and it's better. Sometimes we work on something and we start like working on that, and we find an issue and start working on that and working 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, and suddenly you notice that I'm not solving this today. I need to go to sleep, and that's it. And in the morning, next morning, you solve it in 10 minutes. You know, does it happen to you? Yes. Yeah. Don't ship what you haven't tested. I think it's like obvious, but sometimes secure by default doesn't exist. So be sure that everything is protected. Okay, if something is exposed, someone will find it and will use it. And yeah, your decisions are like you. The architecture you decide today will be operated by someone else tomorrow. So be careful. I don't know. I'm not saying that you do, I don't know, COBOL. Well, maybe some of you do COBOL, but you know, we need to progress, right? To use new technologies and that kind of stuff. But we need to be a bit conservative sometimes, you know. And that's pretty much it. There's a QR, as you can see. I send a newsletter from time to time. Subscribe. Yeah, more horror stories are coming. I have quite more of them. Fabian, you and me have some stories in common that we can say for the next, we can tell for the next meeting, you know?
I will need to kill you.
And you too. So, yeah, that's it. Questions?
How to replace the seal?
Oh, that's a good one. Building your company is the best way. I think that being CEO is not easy here, you know. Business needs speed. So sometimes I understand some decisions, but,
yeah, but
there is a balance.
If I start to write you and then hey, listen, there is this situation, and you see the first, the second, the third, nothing happened. My last mail was, you are incompetent, fuck you, I leave the company. I have nothing to say more.
I hope that's not been recorded.
I was scared about something like, I don't know, you know, some process from the company saying that you are incompetent in the future about what's happening, you understand? I didn't want the responsibility about something that was normal there. For me, it was not normal. So yeah. I decided bye-bye.
Yeah, sometimes it's the best decision you can take.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is not how I want to work. This is not aligned with my thinking. So, goodbye. And exactly. That's it. Yeah, yeah. It happened to me too. Sometimes I won't say it was one. Yeah. They are anonymous, but Yeah. I don't know. You know what happened? That I have really bad memory. Really bad memory. So I know I have many stories, and I'm pretty sure that you have many stories too. So I don't know. At least a volume 2.
I have one like the second one, the RM-RF, in which we recovered most of the database only from screen down.
Oh.
On the terminal stop.
That's one. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Was on that.
Yeah, I think the second one is fairly popular.
Yeah.
I know some people who want.
Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.